With Evil Dead Burn coming out, I decided to revisit the most underrated and my favorite of the Evil Dead films, Army of Darkness. Now hear me out, I know the first one is a genuine horror film, and the second one took everything from that film, made it better, and interjected some comedy into it. But I think the third one is vastly underrated. And while I don't think Army of Darkness is the best Evil Dead film in terms of story or filmmaking techniques or anything like that, I do think it's the funnest one to watch, and if you ask me which one do I want to watch right now, Army of Darkness. So before we all go see Evil Dead Burn, let's revisit Army of Darkness, and yes, there will be spoilers in this, so if you haven't seen it for whatever reason, go see it first, and then come back and watch this video. I know a lot of people don't like Army of Darkness because it took the franchise in a completely different direction. The first one was a genuine horror experience, and then they took that film and the money they made and the experiences they learned on that film to make the second one. And yes, there's some humor in the second one, but it still is mostly a horror film with some comedy into it. The third one is completely different. There's no horror in it at all. It's slapstick, it's funny, it's so silly, it's absurd.
You found me beautiful once.
Honey, you got real ugly.
But look, the studio wanted something a little more commercial this time. And so Sam Raimi and the crew didn't really have much of a choice in that regard. But also think about it. What were they supposed to do? A third film set in a cabin in the woods? I mean, we've seen it once before, and then we saw it better again in the second one. What new things could have happened in a cabin in the woods again? It would have been repeating the same thing over and over and over again. So they went completely different. It's like the franchises that do everything and then they're like, well, there's only one thing left to do, put it in space. We did everything we could in a cabin in the woods. Let's just do something completely different. Let's change the tone of it. Let's set the plot in medieval times. Let's throw some sci-fi elements into it with time travel. And let's just make it a hilarious time. And boy, did they succeed. Personally, I never found the Evil Dead films all that scary to begin with. So to me, they were always comedy, horror films first. But if you just take all the horror out and make it a comedy, I tend to like those. Shaun of the Dead, The Return of the Living Dead, this film, they work as straight up comedies that have some horror elements, but they're not scary. And that's why this film works so well. Some people like the traumatized hero Ash in the first and second films. And some people like the more comedic, silly buffoon Ash that we get in the third one. This film is crazy because it's less than 90 minutes. Like we're in, we go to the action, we have some beats, and we're out of there. There is no wasted time in this film at all, but you love it anyway. There's a lot of films like that I have that I watch over and over because I love them that I can't really explain to people who haven't seen them why they're so good. Talking about Half-Baked, Tremors, Grandma's Boy, Bloodsport, Out for Justice. These films that are good films, but they're not great films, but you just love them all the same. It could be because of nostalgia and when you saw them. It could be because you're just a fan of that kind of content, but you love those films anyway. And that's where Army of Darkness lives for me. Some of the scenes in this film are hilarious. This film has some awesome one-liners, groovy, Hail to the King, baby, and so many more. There's so many fun scenes in it when he first gets to medieval times and he's captured with Henry the Red and dragged to that town, and the people don't really know what is going on here, and then throw him in the pit, and what happens in there is really funny and silly. And the way he gets his chainsaw on his arm and it just magically sticks there is so ridiculously fun. And yes, he goes on a quest to find the Necronomicon. In a completely absurd scene, he fights a bunch of mini-me's for some reason. They're evil and they're trying to get him. It's so ridiculous. But my favorite scene in this film, and genuinely what I think is one of the funniest scenes in cinema history, and one of the most realistic too, is they tell him that when he finds a Necronomicon in this graveyard, he has to say a certain phrase, otherwise something bad's gonna happen, right? And they tell him the phrase, and it's kind of a long, complicated phrase. And in most films, what would happen is like, they got it, and they have like a photographic memory, and they go and recite it perfectly, and it just works. That's not what happens in this film. He finds the Necronomicon, and he starts to recite the phrases, and he can't remember the ending of it. And I'm like, that's exactly what would happen. You say you got it, and then like half an hour later, you're like, what did they tell me? And he's trying to say this, and he can't remember. And he just goes like, and he coughs, and he says it.
Klaatu, barada.
It's so ridiculous because he's like on this quest to save this kingdom from attack. And that's what happens, and he unleashes all the evil Deadites and the spirits and the demons from their graves by not saying this correctly. He gets the book, but he doesn't say the phrase right, and he unleashes all the terror to come. And it's so realistic because that's exactly what would happen. Scenes like that are so absurd and so funny. The final battle is ridiculous and action-packed. And then when we get to the end, you see he's retelling his story to someone in his shop mart, right? In his S-Mart, Shop S-Mart. That's where he's telling the story to someone there, and he gets a witch, and he ends the film with his shotgun. So how much of that was true? I like to believe it that he's completely full of shit. He probably had a drink like I did, and is just making stuff up to try to get in somebody's pants. Who hasn't done that? And that's why it's my favorite of the franchise. Not because I think it's the best film, but it's the one that I come back to, watch the most, and have the most fun time with it. It has the most entertaining scenes to me in the quotable quotes. And what's interesting about the Evil Dead franchise as a whole is it's one of the best horror franchises in total. And what I mean by that is we have Friday the 13th, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, the Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, Hellraiser films. There's so many other franchises, and a large chunk of those films are horrible. Like, they're really hard to watch. Even for big fans of those films like I am, they're hard to watch. There's a few good ones and a ton of bad ones. All of the Evil Dead movies are good. They're either good to great. And that's really unheard of in a horror franchise. And that's why I'm excited for Evil Dead Burn and Evil Dead Wrath coming next year, because this franchise just doesn't miss. There's something about the source material, the Deadites, or the people that they choose, that it just works all the time, every time. And that's why it's one of my favorite horror franchises going. But tell me, is Army of Darkness your favorite Evil Dead film, or is it one of the other ones? And I know some of you are watching this and you really hate Army of Darkness. Tell me why. Maybe I'm seeing this with rose-tinted glasses and you can sway me. Don't think so. But tell me why you hate it, and I'd love to engage with you. As always, subscribe to the channel, give me a like and a follow, help me grow the channel and bring more of this content to you. And until next time, stop scrolling, start watching.